Welcome back, everyone. In this video, we will look at how we can print array elements. So in our previous recording, every time we wanted to print the elements of an array, we created a loop as such, and we looped through each element and printed them out individually. But we have seen how we can print out a string, literal, or any other primitive just by passing it inside a string, inside the print statement like this. Can we do the same with arrays? And what happens if we do? To see the answer to these questions, let's create a new class, and we're going to call it printing array. Let's declare our main method. And we said that we're going to try the same way as we do, for example, string name is equal to John. We say print out name, and we run this program. Oops, not that. We run this program, and it says John, right? So if we have string array of names that has John, Doe, and Jane inside, if I just try to print this array, what will happen? First of all, there is nothing complaining here. So it looks good so far, right? So it means I can do it. And let's run this program. And instead of John, Doe, and Jane, as I would have expected to become an output of this program, as I could do this here, I should have been able to do this, right? I get something like this. So now let's analyze what we got here. This opening square bracket represents that this is actually an array. So we have tried to print out an array. This array has elements that belong to Java lang string class. You see, this represents that the elements inside this array belong to Java lang string. And what does at stand for? At and the rest of it? Because if I try to rerun this program, the rest of it will change. DB9742. Let's rerun it and see if that's going to happen again. Oh, it happened. Okay. So the rest of this doesn't make much sense. What does this stand for? This actually gives you a location where this names array object is located at inside the memory, inside our memory. So we said that arrays also have memories, but the memory allocation is based on the size of an array. So every time I try to print out an array like this, I will get something like this. It will tell me, hey, you just tried to print out an array object, and inside this array object, you're going to have string class objects, and this whole array objects is stored at this location. So we've seen in our previous video that we can simply create a loop that starts at 0 and loops until the array, for example, names.length, right? And it every time it increments, and we can do system.out.print just the element at that specific position, at that index, for an example, names index I, and let's concatenate it by space so that we can see this whole thing printed out next to each other. Run this now. We still get this output, but now we've got John, Doe, Jane. Okay, now we have the skills of encapsulation. So let's just take this loop, encapsulate it inside public static void printing array method. And this method is going to have a parameter that will accept, let's say, string array. Let's call it str array, right? And then we're going to pass it inside. And now we did encapsulate it, but now let's generalize it. We're going to say that this names here is not actually names anymore. This is the str array that the user is going to pass in. The same applies here, right? And if I delete this loop here, and if I simply create an array, take the names array and pass it to my printing array method, as a parameter. Let's do names. Now what will happen is this names will be taken as a parameter called str array and will be printed out. Let's run it. Perfect, it works just fine, right? So let's do this. Let's comment this printout, and let's comment, let's delete this because this is an obvious knowledge. We know this for sure, right? And we're working with these two, and let's actually delete this too. We're working with a string array, and we're working with our printing array that accepts a string array. When we run it, it prints out whatever we pass in, right? And let's do this. What if I create an int array? Numbers is equal to 1, 3, 96, negative 789. Can I call my printing array? There is an error. No, there is not. So can I call my printing array and pass in the numbers? No, right? Because my printing array accepts parameters of string array type. So what I can do, I can try to overload this method. Public static void printing array. I'm overloading it by allowing it to accept int array this time, int array. And then let me just copy and paste this loop because this loop is the same, right? Copy and paste it and generalize it by changing from str array to int array, right? Now let's minimize this, and now it's going to allow me to pass in int array. Run it. It will print out John Doe Jane and 1396 negative 78 right next to each other. So this can be a hassle for you to go ahead and create overloaded methods for all types of possible arrays that you can pass in. For these and future other cases we will see in future, we are going to introduce you to a class called arrays. As simple as that. Arrays class is very similar to math class. The difference is arrays class comes from not java.lang package, but it comes from java.util package. Can you guess what other class? Oops, I almost typed the name of the other class. Can you guess what other class comes from the util class, util package? There is another common class that we use a lot that comes from util package. Pause the video if you need some time, look into your codes, find out which other class also comes from util package. Now that you know that scanner class also comes from util package, util.scanner. So as we said, we will look into few more classes inside the very popular libraries in Java. So now today we're looking at arrays class. That also belongs to the list of classes that are inside Java util package. Arrays class, very similar to math class, is utilized as follows. You call the name of the class. Of course, you have to import it first. Do not forget. Util package needs to be imported. You call the name first, then you have a lot of methods here, which in our next section we will see. And then you call it as toString method. And inside you have to pass an array. It can be of any type because let's go back. Let's call this method again. Dot toString, and look at all of these overloaded options for you. And we're gonna call it, for example, for int array called numbers. We're gonna print out numbers first. However, this toString does not print it out for you. It returns a string value. You can choose it this way. You can print out this way. And let me actually comment out our printing array calls because that's going to populate our console without a need. So look what happened. So we called arrays toString method. We passed in our array by the name, and then this got assigned. This method here returned a string value that looks like this. Do you see the similarity of with our previous print statement? You see opening square bracket, you see closing square bracket, and you see how each element is separated by comma. let us say that let us do this. Let me show you that you don't have a need to create a separate variable. You can call the toString method inside a print statement, and here we're going to pass in names. We passed in a string array. So when you print this out, after the representation of our numbers array, int array, we're just going to have our names array, that is string array, printed out, surrounded by, wrapped inside square brackets, and each value separated by a comma. So this is basically how you can print an array. You can, again, create your own print methods. For example, in our case, our print method does not do anything, just print it next to each other, separated by space. Look at how Java prints it for you, how arrays class prints it for you. It prints it by opening square brackets and closing square brackets, opening square bracket before the first element, closing after the last element. And in the middle, it passes, not between elements, it passes a comma and the space. You can recreate this, or you can simply use arrays class methods. In our next section, we will see at least 6-7 very popular, very useful arrays class methods. For the time being, please practice your skills, and thank you very much for your time. I will see you in our next section.